What is going on, YouTube? Hope you guys are doing fantastic today. Today, we have got patch notes day 10.2. We get introduced to Marty, and we had actually a really good patch. Let's just jump right in. 10.2 Manticore King. I just want to jump right into the actual balance portion. I'm not too interested in Marty. He's something I'm not really playing with until after play-in, so I want to just focus on the actual patch changes. Before we get into the actual changes, this is a big thing to touch on. Gilded is giving 25 basic attack damage to magical gods instead of the intended 20. It's 5 times as effective as it is for hunters. You're basically getting an extra 50 magical power early game on magical gods, which is incredible. So big change. I think the rest of it wasn't that big. Yeah, the rest of it not as big. Titan has cleaves. We talked about that. Does not heal himself. Okay, so green buff just heals. Fire giant, you can actually play stuff on it. Pyro now spawns at 7. Mana camp no longer summons spirit minions. Good. It felt weird. Health camp gives 10 MP5, and then totem reduce the physical size of this NPC by 15%. That doesn't really affect me. So starting with Druid Stone, slight cost increase. I think this item was pretty overrated. Maybe it was bought in other roles, but 15 protections of each didn't feel that great comparatively to the 10 HP 5 from Thebes. So whatever. I guess Cloak was 650 gold, so it was more expensive and it only gave you 10 pots of each, so maybe that's why they changed it. Binding takes a nerf early game. I don't think this item can really be rushed anymore. I think you want to be around level 9, 10 to actually get a good amount of value from it, because only 1 pen. I mean, say you get it around level 5, which is pretty normal. You're having 5 pen on your abilities off of CC, so it's not that great. I think once you get to late game and it's 20, I think that might be a little bit more understandable. Contagion. This is a nice nerf to Contagion. 25 damage is finally in a decent spot, not completely annoying. Now you can only have 1 damaging Contagion. Good. Instead of getting stacked. If a player with a damaging hard card control is an enemy, the aura is now refreshed. Okay, so it's refreshed instead of stacking. And it no longer ticks at 0. It ticks at 1 to 5 seconds. Prophetic Cloak. So this is actually something I want to touch on because I think this is a really good change to Cloak in general. I think this helps support actually a lot more. Decrease the internal cooldown from 10 to 8. So it's a lot easier to get to the evolved aura for supports. Solo laners are going to get this kind of no matter what. And now solo laners, when they do get it, it's going to be worse for them. So I think this overall is a buff to support Cloak, like very small buff to support Cloak, and a very, not massive, but a decently sizable nerf to solo lane and jungle Cloak, because now it's worse when it's evolved. You also have the mitigation you get when you're fully built on it. It's 30 less overall, so that's a good little nerf for it. Sigil, I think this is one of the worst changes in 10.1, was giving healing to Sigil based off abilities hitting you. This item was just, it made no sense at level 20. They were taking less damage because they had mitigation, percent mitigation. You can't build anything to counter mitigation. And then you're also healing. So if you didn't have anti-heal, you didn't have a good amount of damage, you didn't have enough damage, they were just going to be out trading you for very little reason. Berserkers gets a 5% mitigation nerf. I don't know how I feel about this. I don't think Berserkers is really the problem. I think Oni's going from 9 to 12% was probably a bigger problem, especially with touching on Sigil and Prophetic Cloak also. I think Oni's probably would have been a slightly better idea to nerf. Crusher. I like the Crusher nerf. Crusher was doing so much damage. So the cost is going down by 100. The power is going down by 5. And then the passive damage is probably the biggest portion of it, is going down 10% also. Combo that with Heartseeker. Assassins are just doing so much damage in the mid, early, and late game that I think a nerf to Bluestone on top of a nerf to Crusher and Heartseeker, I think would make Assassins feel a lot more balanced. Because right now they're kind of running ranked, and I feel like they're running maybe competitive a little bit also, but junglers feel very good. These are a good couple nerfs to them. So this was a bug. For Hornshard, it was supposed to be 0.5 seconds every 1 second, so it was only supposed to be 1.5 second total, but now it's 0.5 every 0.5, so it's 3 seconds total. So Hornshard is officially a 3-second cooldown over 3 seconds. It's a good change. I like Hornshard. I think it feels really good. I'm a big fan of it. Next up, Kin size, probably the worst change in the entire patch. Kins is already nearly built every game for hunters and auto attack assassins, and now they have an item that is even better with no downside. That is percent max HP on targets. So it shreds tanks, good at power, it's good attack speed, so it's good against squishies also. This item just does everything. It's somewhat cheap. Like 2,600 is not that expensive for this item. Kin size is going to be bought in every build, no matter what. I would not be surprised if auto attack junglers are also back because of something like this, but I'd also be surprised if they do because of how good ability based ones are. Absolutely busted. I hate this item. I hate this change. Kins. Next up, Bladed Boomerang. I don't really ever see this item built, so it's a nice little buff to it. Slightly cheaper, slightly more attack speed, and now it actually doesn't drop in like weird areas. It drops closer to you. So I think that's a nice change to it. Maybe a buff to Mercury, Jungle of Amana, stuff like that. Don't really have a big opinion on this one because I haven't really seen it that much. Next up, Chronos Pendant. Nice change to Chronos Pendant, actually. This item is somewhat cheap, and now it's going to be giving actually a good amount of power. So now it's a cooldown item with good power, good MP5, and you can actually go with Conduit now. Curious because of how good Tablet and Book are, if this even changes anything, because Sands, Book, Tablet, Soul Gem, Divine, Karen's Coin, Reaver are all just absolutely busted items. So I'm I'm curious if this item is even going to be decent because of how good other mage items are. Brawler's Meat Stick. Nice buff to it. It needs to be cheaper. I think it's good that it is a little bit cheaper because the item, when you actually get the kill, like the passive from it, other than the anti-heal, I think it was a really bad change to Brawlers. It made it feel worse to go. But now that it's 2,500, I think it's a nice change. It makes it so it's a little bit less expensive so you can actually build it. And then the power, if you're winning a fight, maybe helps a little bit more. But I still think Brawlers doesn't feel that great, especially compared to Divine. What can you do? Cloak tier 1, decrease from 650 to 600. This helps just Cloak being built in lane. Usually you're able to go one more pot if you go Thebes. Now you can go the same amount of pots as Thebes because they're both 600. So we're going to touch on these three as a whole because these three items were probably my favorite changes this entire patch. Cannoneers being 2,100 makes it so it actually competes with Thebes. I think it's better than Binding now, and I think it's competing with Cloak. 2,100 gold for 30 protections of each, health, and HP 5 on an item that gives you gold, I think makes it so it's actually in a competitive spot. I don't know exactly when you'd build it. I have to test it out a little bit to see if it's worth it or if Cloak is still too strong or Thebes is too strong or whatever. But 2,100 gold makes it so it's very, very just tempting to want to buy. Dawnbringer buff. I think this item was too expensive when it came out. 2,400 gold though, and now it's going to be giving you prots and protections. I think makes it so it's actually something you can consider as a 6th item for some warriors. So I like this change a lot. Lastly, for these three, Absolution, 70 protections instead of 60 and 20% crowd control. I love this change to Absolution. This item, actually all three of these items are super fun items, and I like that they're now more competitive. It felt bad going Absolution because you're giving up either Onis or Heartward or Pesty, but now you're getting an extra 10 protections, you're getting some CCR. It just makes it a more competitive option. Dawnbringer, more of a solo item, but still, I like it. It's a fun item. And then Phalanx, I have no idea. I'm curious if this will get built. Somewhat cheap, but yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I'm not a solo laner. I don't play with this item. I have very little idea about Phalanx, but it looks like it's going to be competitive, or at least somewhat competitive. Some God nerfs, starting with Aokwang. Wildstorm is going down 10%. Nice little change. Hurts his late game a little bit. I still think the God is going to be fine. I think his build right now is just busted, but it's a nice little change to Aokwang. Next up, Hebo. Water Spout doing 10 less base damage at every rank and 5% scaling damage. It hurts him. Does it hurt him enough? I don't think so. I don't think the slightly less, because say he has 1,000 power late game, you're giving up 100 damage on your 3. You're giving up 50 damage on your 3. Bad math. 50 damage on your 3 late game, and you're giving up 10 flat damage early game. I don't think it changes too much with him. Disco buff. Cooldown of erratic behavior, and Golden Apple of Discord is getting extra base damage and extra magical power scaling. I think it's a nice buff to Disco. She's seen a lot of buffs recently also, so I think this may be something that's like pushing her enough into the meta that you're actually able to play her. So I'm excited to see how Disco plays with this. Geb, still Suku, extra base damage just makes him more threatening. He's kind of if he gets ahead, he bullies very easily, but if he falls behind, he kind of just gets ran at. The game's even and he's not in position, he kind of gets ran at. So he's kind of a god you want to play around your team with, but he's very good into junglers that don't go Aegis because he can just one-shot them and they can't really do anything about it. So I like this buff to Suki. Helps his late game one-shot potential a little bit and helps his early game poke a little bit also. Overall, good change for Suki. Jingwei, huge buff to Jingwei. Huge buff. Tick damage goes up to from 10 to 15. She could probably 3-camp with this change. And now when you're maxing this ability, when I'm pretty sure it's already the ability you're maxing, going to be going down to 10 seconds. It gives you an opportunity to poke more often, and that poke is going to be doing more damage, and it allows her clear to be better. And it makes her buff clear and objective damage just higher also. So overall, really good change for Jingwei. Haven't seen her in a while. Chernobog into Darkness is now going from 18 to 16 and then scales down, and it's also mana going down also. Makes him a little bit safer. I like this change to his 3. The change to his 2 is slightly mana change. I don't know if this means anything to him. I don't think it does. I don't feel like he has mana problems at all. So just a slight change to his 3 to make him a little bit safer, I think is a good change to him. Probably he's not going to be reaching Ishtar and then magical ADC levels, but still not bad. I think I would like to see some magical ADC changes or a gilded nerf. Make it so maybe, I don't know, mages just abuse that item so hard and it's so hard to fight into them because of it, but maybe that 5 auto attack reduction nerfs them enough. You could also just move the attack speed up a little bit more and then remove the auto attack damage down a little bit more to 15, something like that. But magical ADCs are still very strong. Bluestone is still very strong. I think I would have liked to see a nerf to them a little bit somewhere. But overall, I'm a big fan of this patch. I think it touches on a lot of things that needed to be touched on. Very excited to try out these 3 items specifically. Glad that mitigation build got hurt a little bit, but not killed. Overall, I like the change. Let me know what you guys think about the patch. Put it in the comments below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll see you guys again next time. Peace.